everything feels really stable right now.
This is the IssuesWatch podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the IssuesWatch podcast. I'm Matt Charne, your host for this week's accounting and auditing episode. I'm an audit director at Clifton Larson Allen. And joining me today is Marissa Flood, Assurance Senior at CLA. Welcome back, Marissa.
Happy to be here.
And apparently, the infamous Brad Muniz, principal at CLA, is back as well. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you very much for letting me barge in.
I thought we had locked the door, but okay. This episode qualifies for a Nano CPE credit. If you're interested in earning CPE credit for this episode, hit the pause button now and head over to njcpa.org/nano to find out how. A quick disclaimer. The views and statements expressed herein are our own and not necessarily those of the NJCPA or CLA. Okay. So, at first I thought everything was nice and stable. And then we had some stablecoin updates and then a nice surprise.
Then Brad walked in the room.
I know.
That's not a weight thing, is it? But anyway. Okay. Yeah, good. This is very interesting what's going on with this.
It is.
You know, they came out with the digital currency guidance, and I
Right.
thought everything was going to be good. And
Yeah.
we would not have to think about anything else anymore.
If only, right?
Yes.
I know. But they had other plans because the Genius Act was signed recently. And among many, many provisions that were listed in this, there are a few considerations that are going to affect what we have to do as accountants. And I'll run through the main considerations quickly, which are just licensing regulations, backing reserves, certain audit requirements that we'll hit on, disclosure obligations, some money laundering stuff, and then penalties for noncompliance, of course, because you have to put some kind of stick in there, or otherwise these will go out there and nobody will pay attention to them. Now, one of the most interesting things that I thought I would bring up first is related to that licensing and regulation provision. And this basically states that if you're going to issue a stable coin, you have to be an insured depository institution, an insured credit union, or some kind of non-bank issuer who has the prior approval from the Office of the Comptroller of Currency, or the OCC, which is another acronym that I haven't heard of yet.
Interesting. So not anyone can just go out there and do this.
Not anybody.
Right?
Yeah. And what I found even more interesting is that these are specific for stable coins, right? And a quick refresher for anyone who's not familiar with a stable coin versus another type of cryptocurrency is they behave a little differently. Stable coins are pegged to a certain currency, and they will typically follow that currency one for one. USDC is a common example of this, or I think there's another one called Tether, which might be USDOT. Those are cryptocurrencies. They are on-chain, which means their transactions are recorded and enacted through a blockchain. So all that code is still there, but the value of those tokens will always be the same as that of a US dollar. This is very different from a Bitcoin,
Right.
Ethereum,
Okay.
any other kind of cryptocurrency out there, Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, all those kind of meme coins, where the value is kind of, I don't want to say esoteric, but determined based on its demand, right? Supply and demand comes into play much more for those.
And I don't expect you to know this answer. So, I mean, stable coin, obviously, now I see the connection of the stable coin as stable to the value of the dollar.
Right.
So, and I'm going to go down a real weird road. Money market funds generally maintain a dollar value. Now, money market accounts, money market funds maintain a dollar value, but they can change because of the underlying investments.
Right.
This is pegged to the dollar. Who's almost guaranteeing that it's going to be pegged? I don't expect you to know that answer. Well, maybe you do.
So I believe that the purpose of that is they're still decentralized in that regard, right? Because it is a cryptocurrency. So these institutions that are licensed and regulated to issue these tokens are the ones that are saying, well, if I issue a USDC token, I have $1 in my reserve to prove that it exists.
Gotcha.
And that brings us perfectly to the second point here, which is
wasn't good.
the new banking reserve requirement.
I should have read this earlier.
Maybe.
One reserve backing. I was surprised to see that.
This does surprise me still, because this exactly what you were saying is who guarantees that this is worth $1, right? And I think the reason behind that statement is now this new requirement that says 100% of your tokens need to be backed by liquid assets, so US dollars, gold, whatever it may be. Something that you can say, well, if for whatever reason my transaction fails or something happens and the token doesn't work, which I wouldn't expect to happen, there is $1 behind it to say, well, don't worry about it, here's your $1 anyway.
Gotcha.
Something like that.
And I would assume that this is coming from everything that has inevitably kind of made this framework happen. Any kind of fraudulent issues, things like that, and making
Yeah.
sure that people are going to get their money back.
Right. So,
Which
I mean, cryptocurrencies, I feel like still don't have the full trust of the public. I think it's getting there, and it's much more popular with younger investors, younger generations who are looking for quicker, better ways to do things, or at least newer, different ways to do things, so that it's not so centralized. That being said, we all remember FTX and what happened there, and that was a big kind of implosion on the value of everything in the crypto market, just because FTX was such a big name at that point. And I think this might be a bit of a response to that, or if anything, it's just recent memory of what the lawmakers are thinking about when they're trying to regulate these things, and thinking, well, this is new technology. It seems to work great, and I'm sure it does work great. That being said, if something were to go wrong, we want this reserve in place so that you're able to, get out of any kind of trouble.
It's what I'm getting from you is that, so the bankers wanted to try and, I don't say control, I'm using a bad word, but they wanted to be more players in the market in the digital currency. And this is their way to introduce a vehicle and be part of it. But the government says if it's going to be part of the banks, you have to have all these requirements. And we're going to get to one later on that I wrote a note about. You're going to love what I reference. But
Right.
It's got to be backed by liquid assets. And one of the problems with the bank is they're always maintaining their certain reserves. I mean, I'm not going to try and say I know the whole thing, but SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, one of the issues they had was the value of their underlying securities, which were government securities, took a hit on a particular day. Now there was other stuff involved, but creating more reserves for them.
Yeah.
And I wonder if these goes into the balance of their calculation of their reserves too. Okay.
Yeah, I think if you work with a lot of banks, if those are your types of clients, I think you're going to see that the impacts from this are going to increase the amount of restricted cash quite a bit, if this is something that they want to work with. And I'll challenge something that you said very quickly, because you said the banks want to control the use of.
I did say control is a bad word.
These types of currencies. He still said it. And so I don't know if control is the right. Agreed. I don't think control is the right word, because there are still some benefits that banks and probably their customers can benefit from in order to. He's writing something bad about me.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Where's Frank?
Banks can receive some kind of benefit by using these types of tokens and this technology, because the transactions can happen a lot faster. If it's on chain, in theory, it should be easier to track the transactions and the records that are created through that, and all that sort of stuff. So I think that they're just trying to take advantage of those benefits while they have the chance, but are obviously being told, well, sure, you can do that, but we want you to do all this first.
So it's kind of gets to an area later on that I wanted to reference. And so, Marissa, I wrote down money remitters. And that's what I said, you're going to die, because we worked on money remitters, and a lot of the bankers won't deal with them because of KYC. And I said to Alan Sobel, our managing partner, one day, I was at a society meeting, and somebody was there, like Sean Stein Smith was there talking about cryptocurrency. I wrote a note to Alan. I said, this really stinks for the bankers. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, this stuff's the Wild West over here. And from dealing with money remitters, banks can't do anything because of the KYC.
Yeah.
They're so restricted, they're so handcuffed. But what's going on over here is just crazy. And now they come up with this stablecoin, which is good because it allows them to play in that market.
Right.
But the regulations are still going to be put on them. So, and it goes down to here, anti-money laundering. When I picked up on it before, when that came up, that was the big thing I picked up on, because we had to deal with that in the past.
Right.
So, I'll let you go on.
Yeah.
I was going to sit here looking good.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a great point, because anti-money laundering consumer protection was a huge provision of this act. And it put in place all of these different requirements and certain restrictions that you can't use the coins for, because it could be considered money laundering. Or it opens the avenue for that. And they said, well, no, the transactions have to do X, Y, or Z, and not A, B, or C. And that's the only way that we're going to allow this to kind of happen, in order to remove that possibility. The other piece of it that I think is worth mentioning is the audit requirement. If these institutions want to work with these types of coins, they need to have that backing that we talked about before. That backing needs to be audited. so that you can prove it actually exists. So you're going to see a lot more of those engagements starting to pop up. I don't necessarily think they would call accounting firms for that. I may be mistaken here, but it seems like an audit that a bank would do on their own to just come in and say, we're just going to sit here and count the cash.
That's how I read it.
Great. Yeah, and I think, that's a good thing, because if those requirements need to exist, they have to be proven. As an auditor, I obviously feel that way. At the same time, I do think that is going to be a very tedious amount of work. I don't know if this is something common that banks do all the time, but it feels like a very repetitive action if these types of tokens don't really take off. Then you're just going to come back and count restricted cash again and again and again.
Exactly.
It feels a very repetitive procedure.
Yes.
And I wonder if that will change in the future. And they say you only have to do this every 2 years, every 3 years, as trust in this begins to grow.
Mm-hmm. No, that's. I'm still stuck on the anti-money laundering thing, because they're saying this, you can only use it for this activity, which I appreciate. I don't want the banks being involved in certain things. But again, then it's going to. Are we going to get to the point now where, okay, now the banking area has this as a tool for their clients, or not tool, but available to their clients or customers to use, and then everybody else is doing it over there, which may help them. Maybe that's their goal, to say, hey, let's get the people that want to do this, get them into a safe environment.
Right.
And we're going to kind of control the environment a little bit. And I use that word control, and you hate it.
Yeah, I don't like that word, Brad. Comes with a strong connotation.
Yes.
Anyway, there's plenty to talk more about this. Let us know if it's something you'd like to see. In closing, if you'd like more information about stablecoins and other crypto-related updates, register for the 2025 Crypto Policy Update webinar on September 18th or 29th. It's being taught by Dr. Sean Stein-Smith, and it's free for NJCPA members. Register at njcpa.org/plus. And be sure to join the Society's Accounting and Auditing Standards Interest Group. Sign up for free at njcpa.org/groups. Thank you for watching or listening.